Greetings and welcome, Your Highness.
Hello again, Dr. Wolf. And please, you know I'd rather be called Twilight.
Of course, Twilight. I see you're as punctual as ever.
Well, you know me. Actually, I would have been a few seconds late today if it hadn't been for that 15-minute buffer you said I should add to my schedule. It really makes things easier.
That's great to hear. So you're saying you feel much more relaxed at this point?
Definitely. Though not entirely. I have to admit, I've never been able to completely let go of my anxiety about scheduling and organizing.
But you have made significant efforts in keeping those feelings from overwhelming both yourself and those around you. And I'm always pleased to see how much progress you've made, honestly.
Thanks, Doctor. I suppose, now that I think about it, I have changed a lot since that first appointment. I couldn't believe I'd let the deadline get so close. I was going to be tardy for the first time in my life. Since I just ran out of time at that point, I used the want it, need it spell to create a friendship problem for me to solve. It was a disaster. I'm lucky my friends stood up for me, so the princess decided to go easy on me. She didn't banish me or throw me in a dungeon or send me back to magic kindergarten, but I could tell she was very angry and disappointed.
And this is the to-do list that you use to plan your day?
Of course! I know the princess said there's no actual deadline now, but I also know she didn't mean that as an excuse to slack off. I think I can avoid this kind of problem in the future if I just allocate an extra 10 minutes between my magic sigil cryptology problems and my daily Sorcerer Necronomicon chapter readings in order to triple and quadruple check my checklist, where before I was only double checking it.
Miss Twilight, do you know many ponies who plan their lives down to this level of detail?
No. But do you know many other ponies who are the personal student of the ruling princess? Me neither!
Nevertheless, Miss Twilight, I feel as though part of the lesson the princess meant for you to learn here is one of flexibility in the face of unexpected circumstances beyond your control. So why don't we dive a little deeper into that?
I felt like such a nervous wreck back then.
I can remember. And since that time, you have truly grown out of your role as a mere student and even ascended to Alicorn Princess status.
Yeah, how about that?
Do you think you'd be able to handle your current responsibilities if you still felt the need for such meticulous control over every detail of every situation?
Definitely not. If I had been a princess the way I was back then, I probably would have pulled out all of my tail hairs long ago from the stress. Now I feel like I can let situations unfold on their own, with only gentle guidance, and have faith and trust in my friends to do the right thing. I think I see now why that's always kind of been Princess Celestia's approach, too.
Back in your more anxious days, would you have expected to be in the position you're in now?
Not at all. It's funny, I spent all those years taking formal lessons from the princess, studying my books, and practicing magic, and yet I never really thought about where it was all going. Even the idea of making friends was a big change for me at first. Actually...
Yes?
Thinking back on my old days in Canterlot of being obsessed with my studies, I suddenly realized that I was actually kind of a jerk to my friends at the time. I never really valued my connection with them, and then I left for Ponyville without ever properly saying goodbye.
Oh, I see. We actually haven't discussed anything you had left behind when you first arrived from Canterlot.
Now that I've changed this much, it actually really bothered me to think back on that. So I decided recently to visit Canterlot and reconnect with my old friends. You might even say I was a little obsessed with making this right. It turns out, thankfully, that most of my old friends were pretty okay with how it acted. All except for one. My old classmate Moondancer was pretty depressed after the way I had left, and had given up on ever making friends. Now studying for her own sake was all she cared about, and she wanted nothing to do with any pony anymore, especially me.
Perhaps you began to notice what it was like to be on the receiving end of some pony who doesn't care about friendship?
Yeah, it was strange. It was almost like seeing a reflection of my old self, and it made me want to help Moondancer, for her sake, of course, but also in part because it was like I was saving my old self. And that's where the obsession really came in. I followed Moondancer for days, trying to help her understand the value of friendship and to stop resenting every pony. Spike tried to make me realize that I was acting obsessed again, but I thought it was okay because at least I was obsessing over something important.
Except there was a time when you thought reporting a friendship lesson to the princess every week was also important.
Yes, I know. In this case, though, it all worked out for the best, because I finally realized I just couldn't help Moondancer on my own. Thank goodness Pinkie Pie has such a wonderful talent for uplifting ponies. With Pinkie's help, Moondancer found it within herself to forgive me and allow friendship into her life.
Well, it is good to hear that your obsessive drive to solve a problem worked out for the best in this particular case. It's also good that you knew when to rely on the strengths and talents of others rather than try to solve everything yourself. But even the princess of friendship can't fix everything, and I think she would do well to remember how unhealthy it can be to stress herself over things that may simply be beyond her control.
Yes, I know you're right. Honestly, I think my obsessive nature will always be a part of me. It still helps me to be organized and on task with my responsibilities, which I still think is important. I just need to be aware of it, and to keep it in check by remembering where my responsibilities begin and end.
Well, as long as you are aware of this tendency you have, hopefully you can keep it from ever driving you into a state of panic, as was prone to happen before.
Well, I'd be lying if I said I didn't still have moments of anxiety when things don't go according to plan or the way I expect. But even though I sometimes feel that way, at least now I know I have the ability and the resources and the support from my friends in order to handle even the most unexpected and challenging challenges.
Very good then, Twilight. 'Tis wonderful to see you come so far. It's actually starting to sound like my work with you is about finished.
Not quite, Doctor. You know I've been referring all of my friends to see you.
Indeed, and I very much appreciate the opportunity to help. I hope that you've seen them progressing?
Yes, they have progressed quite a bit, with your help. And I've been talking about what I've learned so far. But actually, I would like to hear about what you have learned from them.
Ah. I suppose I have become a good deal more confident in my abilities ever since I began in this office. And you really did make a genuine effort to embolden that belief when you were encouraging each of your friends to come here. And when I was teaching each of them in turn, I began to better understand some of my own weaknesses. Having negative thoughts doesn't make you a bad pony. Talking about your struggles can actually help others feel as though they aren't alone in their own times of trial. Having courage to change the things you can, the patience to accept the things you can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. Facing the criticisms of others with clarity while not allowing their words to keep you in despair. And finally, accepting that all your strengths may not be enough for what your friends need at all times. I admit that I hadn't known these elements quite as deeply until I began teaching them to others. So, when I was helping your friends to better learn about themselves, I suppose I was in turn learning more about many of my own weaknesses and struggles. Did you know that your friends needed the help they did when you first sent Fluttershy to my office?
Sort of. But sometimes I feel like ponies expect far too much from me. They might expect me to just tell them what they need to do or how they need to change. But I don't think it's my place to tell them what to think. It's better that they find a good sounding board who simply listens and helps them to work through their own problems.
Perhaps you're becoming more like Princess Celestia than you realize. You're actually helping others learn some of their most important life lessons without forcing them into it.
I'd never really thought about it that way. I mean, the princess was the one who directed me to see you in the first place.
Oh, you hadn't ever mentioned that actually.
I guess it's not that important for me to know why. I've learned so much from her wisdom and experience over the years, and I really believe she wants the very best for me.
You are most fortunate to have had so many wonderful opportunities, Miss Sparkle.
I know. Especially when I think about ponies like Moondancer. I realize that I may have had help from friends and mentors and other opportunities that maybe other ponies didn't have. Which means I feel like I should be doing all I can to help other ponies the way I was helped.
I'm sure you will. Take care, Twilight Sparkle. I'm always available should you need another chat.
Thanks again, Doctor. You take care as well. By the way, I know how inviting it can be to just spend hours and hours in this quiet office with all these great books you have, but don't ever forget there's a whole world of friends to be made out there.
I suppose so. I shall have to keep that in mind.
Bye for now.
Have a lovely day, Twilight. It's good to be helping.